Welcome to the module Refactoring to support other detail views. My name is Thomas Claudius Huber. So far we have built the friend organizer application and it has a friend detail view to display the details for a friend. In the next module we want to introduce a meeting detail view where we can display the details for a meeting. But to be able to introduce this new meeting detail view beside of the friend detail view, we need to refactor our application a bit. And this is what we do in this module. Let me show you the module outline. First, we will create a detail view model property in the main view model of the friend organizer application. So in fact, this is just renaming the friend detail view model property that is already in the main view model. But we also changed the type of this property to iDetailViewModel. We will introduce this iDetailViewModel interface and it will have, for example, the hasChanges property that we have already on the friend detail view model. Beside these adjustments, we will also adjust the friend-specific event classes to more generic events for different detail views. Besides renaming the event classes, we also need to introduce properties in the event arguments so that we know for which detail view model an event is for. It can be, for example, for a friend, for a meeting, or for any other detail view that you implement in your application. After we are done with the events, we will also create a generic repository class that we can use as a base class for our repositories. Currently, the friend organizer application has just a friend repository class. So we will look what we can refactor from that class into a base class. The final thing that we do in this module is to create a detail view model base class that we can use as a base class for our detail view models. Now let's start with the detail view model property in the main view model. In this demonstration, we will create the detail view model property in the main view model, and we will also add the iDetailViewModel interface to the friend organizer application. Let's switch to Visual Studio. Here I've opened the main view model class. You can see the friend detail view model property here that is of type iFriendDetailViewModel. Now let's rename this property to DetailViewModel and let's make it friend independent. I right click here and I choose Rename. Or you can also press F2. I just type in Detail View Model. This is the name I want to use. And I hit Enter. I also go to the field and I press F2 and I move the cursor here to the beginning and I remove the friend here. It should just be called _Detail View Model. Now when you think that this property should contain different view models, it shouldn't be of type iFriendDetailViewModel. So let's just change this here to Object. Now when I scroll down a bit, you can see that the hasChanges property doesn't exist on the type object. When I scroll down further, you can see that the loadAsync method also doesn't exist on this type. This means we need to introduce our own interface for this new detail view model property. So let's open up the Solution Explorer and let's take a look at the iFriendDetailViewModel interface. Here we have already the loadAsync method and the hasChanges property. So in fact we can just reuse these two members and we introduce our own interface that we call iDetailViewModel. I paste the two members into this interface and I remove them from the iFriendDetailViewModel interface. Now we just inherit the iFriendDetailViewModel interface from our new interface iDetailViewModel. I place the cursor behind the iDetailViewModel interface and I press Ctrl- to move that type to its own file. So now in the Solution Explorer, we have that new file, iDetailViewModel, with our interface. Let's also rename the friend ID parameter of the loadAsync method to ID, because this interface should be a common interface for all our detail view models. Now we can go back to the main view model, and we can make the detail view model property of type iDetailViewModel. Let's also scroll up to the detail view model field, and let's also change that field here from iFriendDetailViewModel to iDetailViewModel. Now let's build our solution, and the build succeeded. But there is one thing we need to change in the SAML code. When I open up the main Windows SAML file, you can see that we have here this content control that is bound to the friend detail view model property of the main view model that is in the data context. But now this property isn't called friend detail view model anymore, it's just the detail view model property. As we have used an implicit data template here for the type friend detail view model, This data template will automatically be used if the detail view model property contains a friend detail view model. So when we run the application, it should still work like before. I select a friend, and you can see the friend detail view comes up with the details for that friend. Now let's continue by refactoring the friend-specific events in the Friend Organizer application. In this demonstration, you will adjust the friend-specific event classes OpenFriendDetailViewEvent, AfterFriendDeleted and AfterFriendSavedEvent so that these event classes are not friend-specific anymore. We want to use these event classes for different kinds of entities and not only for a friend entity. This means you will create in this demonstration the friend-independent OpenDetailViewEvent, the AfterDetailDeleted event, and the AfterDetailSaved event. Let's start now with the OpenDetailViewEvent. The UI project of the Friend Organizer application has an event folder that contains these three friend-specific event classes. Now let's start with the OpenFriendDetailViewEvent class that I have already opened here. As you might remember, this OpenFriendDetailViewEvent is published from the navigation view model, and the main view model subscribes to that event, and when it receives the event, it will create a new friend detail view model. But in fact, we need to make this now friend independent. So the first thing is to rename this event from OpenFriendDetailViewEvent to OpenDetailViewEvent. So I press F2 and I place the cursor behind friend and I remove friend from the name. Let's hit enter and the renaming is done. Now when we want to reuse this event class for different detail views in our application, the int parameter for the ID is not enough. Somehow we need to have the information to find out if we have to create a friend detail view model when we receive this event, or a meeting detail view model, or any other detail view model. So beside that int parameter, we need to have more information about the view model that we should create in the main view model. This means we create here a new class for the event arguments of the event. And I just copy the name with the suffix args. On the class I add a public property of type nullable int and I call it ID. I add another public property of type string and I call it viewModelName. So this viewModelName property on the event args gives us the information for which view model this event is mapped. Now we just need to use the OpenDetailViewEventArgs class here as a generic parameter for the PubSub-event class. Now we can go to the navigation item view model that is used for an item in the navigation. This navigation item view model has the OpenFriendDetailView command. So we also should rename this command property to OpenDetailView command. I use the rename factoring again with F2 and I remove friend. I also rename the onOpenFriendDetailView method to onOpenDetailView. When I scroll down in this class, you can see that we publish the OpenDetailView event in this onOpenDetailView method. As this is a command handler, I want to call it onOpenDetailViewExecute. Now as we also changed the name of this OpenDetailView command property, we need to adjust this as well in the SAML code. So let's open up the navigation view. When I scroll down a bit, you can see that the command property of this button is bound to the OpenFriendDetailView command property of the navigation item view model. Now we just need to bind here to the OpenDetailView command property because we have renamed it. Now let's go back to our navigation item view model. When we publish the OpenDetailView event, we need to pass new OpenDetailViewEventArgs to the publish method. So here I create a new OpenDetailViewEventArgs instance, and for the ID property I just use the ID property of our navigation item view model. Beside the ID property, we also need to set the viewModelName property. But where do we get that viewModelName from? Actually, we shouldn't hardcode the viewModelName in this navigation item view model. Instead, we should get it as a constructor parameter. So I just add an additional constructor parameter that I call detailViewModelName. And I store the value of that constructor parameter in a field of the navigation item view model class. I press Ctrl dot to generate that field. Now I scroll down again to the method where we publish the OpenDetailView event, and here I can just use the field detailViewModelName for the viewModelName property of the OpenDetailViewEventArgs. Now we are done in this navigation item view model class. Let's go to the navigation view model where we need to provide the detail view model name. When I scroll down to the loadAsync method, you can see that the constructor of the navigation item view model is underlined in red. Here we have an error because we need to pass in the view model name to this constructor. As this navigation item view model is for a friend, we pass in the name of the friend detail view model, because the friend detail view model is the detail view model that is used to display a friend. Let's scroll down here where we have another error, and here we also create a navigation item view model for a friend after a friend has been saved that didn't exist in the navigation. As it is also a friend here, we also use the name of the friend detail view model. Now we are done with the view models for the navigation. In the navigation item view model, we published the Open Detail View event. In the main view model, we subscribe to this Open Detail View event, and now we can use the view model name of the Open Detail View event args to create an instance of the specified view model. So let's go now to the main view model and let's use the view model name. In the constructor of the main view model, you can see that we subscribe to the Open Detail View event. The event handler is called onOpenFriendDetailView. I right-click it and I say go to definition. The first thing I want to do, I want to rename this to onOpenDetailView. So I press F2 and I remove friend from this method. The friend ID parameter is also not valid anymore. Here we get the OpenDetailView event args. In the first block of this method, we check if the current detail view model has changes, and if that's the case, we display a dialog to the user if he wants to navigate or not. Then we create a new friend detail view model and we assign it to the detail view model property. Then we call the loadAsync method on the detail view model property with the friend ID. So in fact, here where we use the friend ID, we can just use the ID from the event arguments. But now this friend detail view model creator function call is specific for the friend detail view model. So here we can just create a switch, and we want to switch by the view model name that we receive over the Open Detail View event args. In case of the friend detail view model, we want to assign a new friend detail view model to the detail view model property. And now it's very simple. If we have other detail view models, we just need to include an additional case in this switch statement. Now let me scroll up a bit, as we have here still one error as the renaming didn't work as expected. I remove friend from this method and we call it onOpenDetailView. Now let's try to build the solution and let's see if it works. Okay, the build succeeded. Let's run the application. I click on a friend and the details are displayed because the main view model receives the OpenDetailView event. Now let's continue with the other events in the friend organizer application.